The 40s and 50s were a revolutionary time for women in America. Thanks to the demand created by World War II, women entered the workforce in full force for the first time. The World War II era saw the transformation of the common woman from lowly stay-at-home housewives and trophies, more for show and for child-raising than anything else, into strong, productive, and outgoing individuals. Women took over where the men were forced to leave off, in factories, government, and other jobs. America was in need, so the woman stepped up to the plate, with over 6 million women entering the workforce, adding up to a 57% increase. Women were encouraged throughout the media to take charge and find a job or volunteer to help the war effort. Once in the workplace, many women discovered that breaking the boundaries of tradition wasn't such a bad thing, and many enjoyed their lives outside of the home.
As the war ended and we come into the 50s, we can observe another drastic change in the role of women in American society. The end of the war meant many soldiers were coming home and were once again in need of jobs. This left little space for women in the workforce. They were encouraged through the same media sources that had led them to the workplace in the first place to now leave their jobs and return to the home. Society's image of a good and proper woman experienced a complete turnaround in the 50s. The expected role was changing and adapting with the times.
Where before society had told women to be free and liberal, to be independent and efficient workers, it was now telling them to return to tradition. The 50s saw the return of the ideal housewife to American culture. Society now demanded women to be the perfect wife and mother, to welcome their returning husbands home with open arms, ready to cook them dinner and start a family. This mentality is one of the contributing factors to the beginning of the baby boom. The baby boom was one of the most noticeable effects of the new mentality of the 50s. The duty of woman was to please her husband, but also, and most importantly, to have children and run the household. It was every housewife's dream to have a large, perfect family. This pressure and need for a large, stable family led to the development of the 50s ideal family dynamic, the nuclear family.
The nuclear family structure consisted of the happy housewife, the runner of the household, the stay-at-home mom who's always around to cook and bake, raise the children, and please the husband. The husband, the breadwinner of the family, the man of the household, and the child, or children. Raising and caring for the children was a full-time job, and the women were expected to stay at home and carry out this job, especially if their husband's wage was high enough to provide for the family. Any woman remaining in the workplace was constantly pressured by society to leave and to find her proper place back at home. The everyday life of a woman became very child and husband-centered. In response to the growing need in the household, companies in the 50s became dedicated to producing and inventing new and affordable technology to help make the life of a housewife easier. Some of this new technology included refrigerators and electric stoves. The role and influence of women also made its way into the media, entertainment, and advertisements of the 50s. This media, especially the advertisements, used famous actors and actresses to reenact common, familiar household situations in order to reach out and appeal to audiences, like here in this ad.
Oh, no.
What's wrong?
Oh, it's your coffee again. The desk sergeant at the station makes better coffee than this.
Ed, really?
Sorry, honey. Your coffee tastes terrible.
Mr. McGregor, please help me.
Carol, what's the matter?
My coffee. Ed says he gets better coffee at the police station.
Why not try new Instant Folgers?
Instant Folgers?
No, I said new Instant Folgers, Carol. Tastes good as fresh pert, because it's made from fresh pert coffee. Then they actually turn that fresh pert coffee into new Instant Folgers.
Tastes good as fresh perk because it is. Fresh perked. Mr. McGregor, I'll try it.
Hey, the Sarge never made coffee like this.
It's new Instant Folgers. Tastes good as fresh perked.
I like it better.
Try new Instant Folgers. Tastes good as fresh perked because it is.
Stereotypes for women during this time period showed the housewife as dull and desperate to please, with no larger dreams than a neat house and a happy husband. A woman was expected to stay home with the kids if a second paycheck wasn't necessary. If the family was well off and the woman still wanted a job, she was looked down upon and considered selfish. Women also faced extreme pressure from society and ads to get married young, in fear of becoming an old maid. As said in the popular 50s movie, The Tender Trap, a woman isn't a woman unless she's been married and has children. Another stereotype is that all women in the 50s were happy and willing to be leaving the workplace, when in fact many of them weren't.
The 50s progressed, and more people became unhappy with the status quo. People criticized the 1950s with its conformist culture and strict ideals. People were expected to stick to high standards and live happy, perfect lives. No real problems were shown during this period. Anything that wasn't a surface problem was buried so deep that it was hardly ever seen. Television shows, ads, and any conversation made a point to avoid anything that could be a real problem, such as drinking, depression, or marriage issues. The only problems ever talked about freely were things that could easily be solved and centered around superficial issues. Because of the harsh expectations and highly enforced roles in society, and people's discontent with these things, the decades that followed were extremely liberal in comparison.
The undercurrent of new culture that was controversial in the 50s became loved, and roles started switching. Women started to step out of the housewife mentality and wanted to go back into society and the workforce. They became valued members in the hippie era, and their opinions held more standing than before. Women started to re-involve themselves in politics and social issues, and women's rights started to improve. The roles of women in society are constantly changing, and keep changing and progressing even into today.